Welcome, everybody. I'm Rodney.
Hey, I'm Candace.
And we are Cohort
1986.
Candace, today we have a very, very, very special guest.
Oh.
Our season 2 has been so good so far.
It has.
This reboot has been life.
Yes, I would agree.
We have Mr. Brian H. Waters today.
Oh.
Do you know what Brian does?
What?
Brian is a producer with The Ringer.
Oh.
For the show Mac Mania podcast and the Book of Wrestling podcast. Brian has also worked at ESPN.
Oh.
He also owns his own podcast called Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you know what?
And I think Brian also said something about John Hopkins, but we're going to ask him when he gets on the show.
You know what? Brian can discuss what he does in a little more detail than we do. So I'm going to give a round of applause for Brian. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Before we get started, I want to congratulate y'all on a season 2 because as somebody who works in podcasting full time and really enjoys it even before working it full time, I realized the grind and how hard it is. And one of the things that I was going through my Spotify, cheap plug, podcast list, and I'm like, okay, I'm subscribing to a lot of Friends and Associates podcast. They haven't done an episode since 2017, delete, 2018, 2019, delete. So, and life happens, and we all know during the pandemic, everybody created a podcast. But I told my friends who was kind of getting discouraged because they felt like this is what they do. I said, just stay with it. I promise you, when we can go outside again, we'll see things dwindle down and show now. Yeah. So I wanted to congratulate y'all.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I appreciate that. Because sometimes I'd be like, we just be holding on.
It's a lot of holding on. Across the nights, baby. Like, man.
Everybody be like, when y'all gonna do another podcast? We'll be looking at each other like,
it's worth it.
It's worth it. It really
is.
It is. It's fulfilling, especially knowing that you're helping others.
Yeah, that's why we do it, because, our purpose is, providing knowledge, inspiration, and perspective, and informal mentorship. So that's why I'm really excited today for everyone who's out there who's listening, because our guest today just has so much knowledge, and I'm hoping that he's going to drop some tips for us too, Rodney.
Look, but before he drops his knowledge and these tips.
Okay.
I heard there's some rapid fire in the air. You got those questions ready?
Ooh. This is like my favorite part. Okay, let me get into it, right? So Brian, first question for you. What is your favorite place to vacation?
Wow, that's a good question. I will say, if I have to go recently, I'll probably say Chicago. Chicago was beautiful, but the problem is you can't. Would never go there in between the months of November and March. So, but Chicago was great, and New Orleans. New Orleans has been good to me.
Yeah,
awesome.
All I can think about now is like all the great food in Chicago, the pizza,
New Orleans, the gumbo, the jambalaya.
But then the more I think about it, though, if I have to credit one place, and it wasn't a vacation that I went there on, but it definitely changed my life for the better. That's Dallas.
Love Dallas.
Look, Dallas is so underrated, man.
Yeah.
It's so underrated.
Yeah. I love Dallas.
Look,
that was where WrestleMania was, so it was so much fun.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna be controversial. I like Dallas more than Houston, and that's not a popular stance for a lot of people.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to Houston yet.
Yeah, I like Houston.
Yeah, I have family in Houston. Yeah. We go probably once or twice a year.
Yeah.
We love Houston.
Nice.
I love both of them. Okay, Brian, you all right with me? You all right with me, Brian? So my next question for you is, like, what's your favorite type of food?
Oh, so I love French fries.
Okay.
And so in the past 4 months, I've been blessed to drop about 40 pounds. So that required a lot of pushing the fries away.
Yeah.
And French fries is definitely like my favorite, and I can make a really good steak and lamb.
Oh,
send me some recipes, because I need some recipes for lose weight loss.
Yeah, when Brian gonna come on down the road? I mean, he just put out there that he good with steak and lamb, and I love French fries too. I'm gonna tell you, like, the best French fries that I probably ever had in my life, believe it or not, were in Romania. So I had to travel for work. I went to Romania and I had the best French fries and ketchup of my life.
Okay.
I'm gonna just say, I got pushback. She was just hungry from travel. I don't believe it.
I'm telling
I don't believe it at all.
I don't know where they got those potatoes from, but they had to be golden.
They were the Lord's potatoes.
All right.
That sounds great.
All right, Brian. So we're gonna just kind of jump into it. So just kind of, what didn't I cover about you? Like, can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I was a non-traditional student. I went to Baltimore City Community College for supposed to be 2 years, but ended up being 3 due to like going part-time a couple of semesters. Supposed to take a 1-year break and then go to Morgan State. Well, 1 year turned to 2, 2 year turned to 3. That 3rd year, I said, okay, I'm going back to school. I was working at Best Buy at the time, and every time it was time to get promoted, something would happen. I get pushed back. So I went to Morgan, and I decided I wanted to major in television production. And I was kind of like, oh, I can do TV production and broadcast journalism, but then it didn't make too much sense. So kind of wasted a semester there, but it was the best thing I could have did because I'm a part of the National Association of Black Journalists. And one of the reasons I joined, because one of the founders, shout out to Dwayne Wickham, who was one of the writers for USA Today back in the day, and he's done so much stuff. I mean, if you Google him, you'll see. But he came into Morgan my last year, and he changed the school around. He opened up a lot of opportunities. The people who were there before the previous regime, just from what I could see, students wasn't getting the same opportunities. The university didn't take the communications department that serious, and he told me and my co-host Dwayne that at that time, Morgan, some of the local TV stations didn't take Morgan State students seriously, and he had to reprogram the reputation. And he said, "This is where y'all come in." So we was getting assigned different, called the Urban News Project. We would get assigned to do a story every week, and the camera that I'm using now to film, he gave me to do that, and I would go write a story about whatever was a trending topic. I even got to put this was during the 2013, the height of the Harlem Shake again, or the resurgence of the Harlem Shake. So I wrote a story in the newspaper, and I called my good friend Brother Hugh, and he was on. He was like the person who gave me the quote, and he did the video for me because he's like out of my friends. That's the dancer. So we put together the video. I had to do voiceovers and stuff. So upon joining NABJ every year, which I'm disappointed I can't go this year, but I'm going to SummerSlam. So, but every year they have their national convention, and that's where you meet a lot of other Black journalists throughout the country. The who's who of journalism. So I went there in 2013 in Orlando. Then there's the biggest job fair. That's where I was recruited by ESPN, and I got recruited, and I remember this is the days like resume paper. I gave my resume, I had resume paper. And I'll be honest with you, the job fair started at 9:00. I was in ESPN's line at 9:03. And I felt that I was like, I'm going to get this job. Now, I had set up a couple interviews with some other local stations and like production assistant positions, but I had to like really push myself because I'm like, no, that is the job I want.
This is the one.
And after a stressful month of being in my head, I started working there September 2013. While I was there, I worked as in sales quality control. So when you're watching a football game and it said this is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, I had to write down the time code, send it to the producers. I did that for about 4 months. Then I worked what they call ABC News One, where ABC News One is in New York. We would have to grab highlights off the server, send it to New York, and they could send it to a lot of the smaller stations that's not going to send somebody to cover sports in the field. So we did that. I did that, and then I worked in highlights. Hated it. You would get it would have made me as much. Baseball is my favorite sport. I was getting to the point I didn't like baseball. And highlights consisted of you would watch a game, log everything that happens, which is very hard to do in basketball because it's so fast paced. And hockey. So after you log everything that happens, then you mark it in the time code. Then you have to find like you're telling the story of the game. Most of the time, if you're a younger producer, you're getting 45 seconds, but because you're getting the C and the D games, once you move up. But then in baseball, anything can happen. So you could be expected. Oh, I got, let's just say, Orioles and Cubs. All right, you might not expect it to be a big game. All of a sudden, the pitcher's throwing a no-hitter. So now you got to notify producers, and because now this game just got important. Wow. So I did that, and then I went to them. I said, I want to do something else. I wanted to get on baseball tonight, but they didn't have room over there. They put me on Mike and Mike in the morning. It was an easy shift, 3:30 in the morning to 10:30, and that was so much fun. But then after this got repetitive, then by this time I'm like looking for jobs. I'm ready to come back to Baltimore. But the best thing that could have happened was that I went to social media, and that changed my career trajectory just because I was able to learn how to really create social media strategies, learn how to tweet, create interactive content. And I did that. And then after I moved to Baltimore, a few months later, I started working at Johns Hopkins in media relations. And I really, they have what they call an annual Science Writers Boot Camp, which is a workshop where we have the doctors showcase whatever they pick a subject. So this year was like the first year was diabetes. So we had a bunch of diabetes doctors, and they was talking about the research they was working on. And we went to the National Press Club in DC, and you had a bunch of the science writers from all over. They would come and report on what's coming out, what's new, interview the doctors. And I had to help plan that. And I went through this temp agency, and they said, yeah, we need somebody with social media experience, whatever. It was probably like 1 or 2 tweets that involved this job. But I know, like, I'll never forget the date, June 19th, they said would be my last day. I said, all right, cool. Wow. A week before, my manager, who had just happened to be the only teacher who failed me in high school 13 years prior, she came to me and said, do you want to stay? I was like, hell yeah. She said, okay, because I'm working on this new initiative and there's a lot of social media involvement, and you would be great. So during that time, I kept coming up with different ideas. How can we reach the media? I'm looking at it like this. Most of my friends are journalists, and at the time I'm 29, getting ready to turn 30. So most of my friends that's in the field from NABJ are between 24, 28, 29. They don't want to read a long press release. So I said, what if we give them a summary? Like, we take videos or we take graphics and we start tweeting. Every tweet needs to have a photo with it, first of all, because just putting these press releases are boring. We need to change the website. We need to do this. And so sure enough, I did that. I had them, my manager was always the type of person, as we say in the wrestling business, creative control. She would give you creative control. And I would say that I would come up with an idea, and it might be a C, and then talking to her, we put our heads together, become an A. And that was like one of the greatest teams I work with. Like, they started building the team younger, and where traditionally the team was full of people who were seasoned writers. They started bringing in younger people who understood social media, and it was a lot of fun. We did a lot of cool stuff. We traveled to cover conferences. Doctors would have their annual meetings at, like, let's say the American Heart Association. We would go to, the first year I went to Chicago. We went, and this is why I don't like to go there in the cold, because we went in November, it was freezing. And the strategy was, okay, as soon as the doctors finished giving their speech to their colleagues, let's get a quick summary video. I took how I covered sports and applied that to medicine. And the doctors loved it. Then as the team started getting smaller, people getting different opportunities, they said, we need you to have a beat. We want you to be responsible for orthopedics, sports medicine, and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not a science writer. So Brian H. Waters, what he gonna do? I took a shortcut. I would tell the doctor straight up, and this is during the height of the pandemic too. I said, look, I'm gonna tell you straight up, I'm not a writer when it comes. I do like journalism writing. I'm not a press release writer. You got the worst science person, because I failed science in 11th grade.
Listen, I was close with the whole science.
Yeah, and I said I failed science in 11th grade. But when it comes to the media stuff and the social media and the video content, I got you. So I would meet with them. They would say, we got this new study we're working on, yada yada. Like, one of them was about how we're doing Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I would go to them. I said, we need to create content around that. So one of the doctors, and I'm passionate about it because I lost my favorite uncle to prostate cancer in 2012. I appreciate it. And I went to one of the doctors and I said, can we talk about how it affects Black men disproportionately from white men? And he told me, just to give a quick medical lesson on here, that we put this on video. If you look at Hopkins Med News, it's in there somewhere. But basically, the prostate in an African American male and people of African descent is a little bit further back, so it's harder for them to detect it. And they were working on programs for them to work for it. One thing, especially because I got my brother on here, they said is ask your doctors about the BRCA2 gene to see if the BRCA2 gene is in like your like if it's in hereditary. And when I told my friend Vanessa, she covered the cardio beat. She said she knew about the BRCA2 gene is affecting breast cancer. But it's a lot of stuff that I learned during those 5.5 years at Hopkins that a lot of us just didn't know. We just didn't have access to that information. So I appreciate y'all, allowing me to bring that to this platform.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because a lot of other people may not be aware, and what you just said may just happen to help someone.
And I hope it do.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it's like I said, the pandemic happened. My favorite manager left. I'll say this. I knew the other favorite manager was probably out the door soon. I knew she was being heavily recruited. So I was like, I gotta get out of here. And a good friend of mine just happened to hit me up around, I don't remember what month it was, but he hit me up, said, hey, we got a position that's coming up, WWE, and we'll be having more WWE podcasts. Okay. He said, if you're interested, let me know. Yes. So he had looked at the stuff I had been doing. So I paused right there and go into, while I was in college, me and my best friend created the Wrestling Realm, a wrestling talk show. And what we did was, the idea was, one, we love talking wrestling. We would always have like good conversations, but also helped us practice the video production skills we were learning in school. So we created that, and shout out to my professor Eric Dotson. When one day he was asking everybody what they wanted to do with their careers, so he came to me. I'm like waiting. I had a business card for him. I told him exactly, like, look, me and my friend, we got a wrestling show, this, that, and the other. And he was like, wow. I'm gonna check it out. And then he would like elaborate the story, say we created it in the school dorms and we had it. I was like, we wasn't in the dorms, but but we created the Wrestling Realm. And I was a lot, like when I was at ESPN, we had to kind of take a break. But then when I moved back to Baltimore, we resumed the show. And then I created the Break It Down with Brian H podcast, a part of the Wrestling Realm, because there was a time where we couldn't record every week. And I was like wrestling. I'm like getting excited about it. I was like, I'm gonna create a podcast. And I created that, and we have like different divisions of the show now.
Wow.
And then in November 2019, I was in Atlanta for I want to say it was Thoracic Surgeons Conference. I went to like so many different conferences, but I think it was Thoracic Surgeons Conference. And I was with my manager, the one who I knew was getting heavily recruited. And she was like my travel partner. And I told her, I said, I'm gonna create a podcast. I said, I've been blessed to be connected with so many people. I'm gonna create a podcast and highlight them. And that's when I created Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. I like wrote out a podcast plan, because working at Hopkins, anytime we had to do a new project or we had an upcoming conference, my manager would always stress, write a plan. I'm like, well, we gotta write a plan in Google Docs.
Everything.
Shout out. Brian, can I ask you a question? So with your love of wrestling, where did that begin? Like, me personally, I used to be a big, like, I used to love Triple H as a kid. Bret Hart, Stone Cold.
Yes.
All right, real quick, Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels?
Bret Hart.
Yes.
Hey man, look.
This belt is actually signed by Bret.
Oh wow. I was a big Bret Hart fan, but like, so
where did it start?
Up, like, what was your love of wrestling? Were you the kid that had all the wrestling video games? And
I know my cousin did
all the wrestling video games and all the pay-per-views.
So probably 36 years ago around this time, my mother was probably watching wrestling, and this kept happening in her stomach. And she said she told me a story, and it's always funny when I share it. She said she knew I was gonna be a boy because she wanted to be surprised. She knew I was gonna be a boy because every time wrestling came on, I started kicking.
Wow.
And my grandma was like, oh no, I think you might be having a girl. She said, no, this is a boy. I'm telling you, this is a boy. So, and mind you, the TV that she was watching didn't have a remote, and she hated wrestling because my grandfather loved it, my uncle loved it, my dad watched it, and they would leave it on the channel. She was like, all right, whatever. So next thing you know, she gets hooked. She gets brought into storylines, and after she has me, she decides she's gonna go to shows. She leave me at home. I'm too young, and I didn't go to my first show till I was 18. But but yeah, so because eventually they fell out of it, and my parents didn't like crowds and stuff. But yeah, I've always been a fan. When I grew up, my uncle would sit there and watch. He's 11 years older than me, and he would have it on, and then I would watch it and pick his brain. And pay-per-views come on, he's giving me, he's ordering it and he's sending me the tapes, and same thing. And my late uncle as well, same thing. So it was a family dynamic, and we all enjoyed it. And my parents, they always were like, back in the day, you had 4 pay-per-views, and then eventually 5, then it was every month. But I one day I was sitting there I was like, wow, I really saw like WrestleMania 9, which like this is 93. I saw WrestleMania 9. Then we didn't see King of the Ring, but we saw SummerSlam, then Survivor Series. So I saw all the pay-per-views because they would order them, or I would go to my grandmother's house and watch them. So it's always been like ingrained from day one.
Man, that sounds like me, man. I remember like being a kid and like going to Blockbuster, man, those old Summer Series 1990 videos,
or Earl's videos.
Yep. and then like because I grew up in Charleston part of my life too.
Okay.
So we had like a newspaper clippings of what was going on. You could call a little hotline. He would give you all the wrestling tips. Man, I look, man. I used to be a lover of wrestling so bad, man.
My cousins, like all my boy cousins, they used to watch wrestling all the time. They had like the little men, and then we were like even playing it like on the games and stuff back in the day. But I must say, I did go to one of the wrestling matches. So I went to WWE and I sat down on the floor and watched it. It was like the coolest thing ever. So
that's on the bucket list. I'm going to a show.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
You never been to a show?
Did you wrestle in high school or anything?
No, I wanted to, but I have scoliosis, and my dad was like, and I was like, but now I wouldn't. I was a referee recently at Invictus Pro up in New Jersey, and it all started via social media. So it was a wrestler. It was 2 wrestlers, one Jay Bougie and other the Reverend Ron T. Hunt. They had a match scheduled, so they on social media talking trash, and so I just turn on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm gonna watch the conversations. So it's also PJ Savage, because he's the main person who instigated. So PJ and Jay Bougie are in the same group called Takeover. Ron is a part of Shane Taylor Promotions. He's the COO of Shane Taylor Promotions. So just on Instagram Live, I get on and they start clowning Ron about having a ring light. Then Ron's clowning Jay Bougie about having Crocs. So I said, "What's wrong with a ring light?" I did one of these, and they was like, "Oh no, not you too." I said, "Yeah." So before you know it, it became a whole. I gotta fix this. So before you know it, it became a whole beef about Crocs and ring lights.
Wow.
So then, a few weeks later, PJ's on Instagram Live. He's like, Brian H. Waters, you want to be the referee? This is the most New York show ever. We doing this how we want to do it. You can be the referee for the Bodega Street fight.
Wow.
I said, okay. So I'm now scheduled. I'm going to be the referee for the Bodega Street fight. And sure enough, I was the ref, but there was a stipulation. And it was, if Ron lost, I had to wear Crocs. So in wrestling, I'll break kayfabe real quick. No, I'll break it. I get to the show. I see the results. I'm like, okay, so this is what's going to happen. So to come out of kayfabe, go back into kayfabe. So during the match, I'm sitting there, and there's a point in the match where Jay Bougie gets in my face. And he like pushes me with the plate. I said, "Oh, okay, so that's what we doing." So I wait. First time Ron gets him down, I hit him. My hands hit the mat a couple times, a little fast. And it was like 2. He kicks out. So all of a sudden the fans start booing me. They start yelling, "Dirty ref, dirty ref." So then the next time I did a regular count, Jay Bougie kicks out. So then all of a sudden I see here comes Jay Bougie's other members from TakeOver. I'm like, what are they doing? I was like, but it's a street fight, so I can't put them out of the ring. They take the crock and they flame it, and now the crock is on fire.
Oh my God.
And they hit Ron in the head.
Oh Lord. Melted crock.
Like, yes. And so mind you, also before this, Jay Bougie got in my face again. So when it came time for the 3 count, and his mother threatened me before the match also.
Oh,
you better make sure you call it down the middle. I said, as long as that nobody touch me, I'm good. So like say he gets in my face again. And this time he got the microphone like Booker T used to do and The Rock used to do, talking trash while he's fighting. Right. He go, he's stomping him, and he's stomping him. He's doing all that. And he said, and you think you tried to fast count me earlier. I ain't forget about you.
Oh no.
So I said, all right. So, I counted 1. Trying to make sure that as I'm hitting the mat, my hand is ringing loud enough so Ron can get up. 2, get up, Ron, get up. 3. So the crowd goes crazy. And then even like one of my friends is sitting front row. She's going crazy because Jay Bougie won, shocked the world. And she's like, oh, wait a minute. You was my partner who also don't like Crocs. No, you got to wear Crocs. So there was my friend Hugh, who was bragging about it, slides me his Crocs. He slides them to Jay Bougie, and Jay Bougie gets in the ring and goes, here we go. And I had to wear Crocs in the middle of the ring. Man.
Yeah. At least they're comfortable.
Look, at least they have some.
I love my little Crocs.
I'm gonna say this comfortability. It's comfortable. It caresses the arches of your feet.
Yeah.
I'll say that's the closest.
Sports mode, and you can put them in sports
I've heard
mode
about the sports mode, and I was out the other day, and one of my friends had them, and I'm like, what? Come on, my little cousin had them, my little niece had them. I'm like, get these things out of my face. But it was that is the closest I would get to the ring. Now PJ has tried to call me out for a match, and he's been trying everything. But I am the social media manager also for my friend Amber Rodriguez, professional wrestler, and she decided to jump in and say I don't have any PTO days. She said I only have 1 PTO day to do that match to be the referee, and so me and her are trying to negotiate some more PTO days. But she's like, no, Brian's not wrestling. He's not a worker. He has to work for me. She said, I'll wrestle him. So PJ can take it up and have the match with Amber.
That's dope. That is dope.
And I heard you say that, for your friend, you're like her production manager. So can you talk a little bit about like your content creation and just kind of what does it mean to be a producer for podcasting?
Well, for Amber, I manage her social channels.
Oh,
so when all the creeps try to come in, they gotta get through me. So they usually don't make it. But yeah, I manage her social media so that like when we have a show that's coming up, well, she's obviously a wrestler, but she has a show coming up. I'll tweet out the graphics and post. And even if she goes, like if I don't get to go to the show, she might create some videos and she'll send them to me. And I'll, make short clips and we'll post it there. Now that she's back in the same area, so we have a show this Saturday. So I'll be right there with her creating content. But yeah, that's what I do as far as for her. That's under the B Waters Productions umbrella.
Okay.
So kind of just explain more what B Waters Production is and what you have to offer with that.
Yeah, so I created this in 2008. I always fell in love with like shooting video and taking photos, and I created and with no like formal training, but I was the guy who figured out, okay, I got a camera, I can shoot. I know how I found this editing program that was cheap, and like, okay, you clip here and you clip there. But through school and education, I was able to increase. But I like to really really help people preserve their memories. So if somebody has like a wedding, I tend to stay away from weddings. I got people that I'd rather work under their umbrella. Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's like something like, so my uncle is a gospel drummer, but he's also the manager of a group called New Direction. So anytime they're doing something, he calls me. So under the B Waters Productions, I'll do his photo shoots for the group. I design their album cover. And I've also, during the pandemic, we did 2 virtual concerts.
Oh wow!
So and it was a lot of fun, difficult but fun. Where I would set up 3 cameras in the church or the studio, and then I would have 1 camera, and as they're singing, I'm just going around capturing the video, and then in post-production switch it off to make sure you don't see me in any of the shots. So it looked like a shot by 2 or 3 people.
That's dope.
That's pretty cool.
That's dope, man. That's so cool. Dope.
So can you talk a little bit about like why is like branding like so important? Like the way that you appear on social media, like why is that so important for people?
I mean, it's because it's your representation. You know, you want people to know who you are. Like we talked about our good friend Mike Patton,
right?
And watching him brand and just talking to him on the phone. I know Mike is somebody who's a very serious person, but very very supportive. But he also takes everything he does. You know, he makes it done with professionalism. Right. And it's nowadays people don't look. They do background checks, but social media is a part of background check. You can tell a lot of person by not only what they tweet, but what they like.
Right.
You was like, oh, okay, so you might be all quiet, but you up here liking things that happen on January and such. So your brand is your reputation.
So I also heard you, like, as we were talking earlier, how you kind of changed your trajectory. So can you talk a little bit about like, what was it like when you were just kind of approaching them about doing different jobs, like in ESPN? Like, what did that conversation look like?
And did you have a plan for yourself too?
So like ESPN, it was a little difficult because if I had known, I'll say it as early as like 7 or 8, that I was going to end up at somewhere like ESPN, I would have made myself like more sports. The problem for me was I like the same sports that majority of people like: baseball, basketball, football. So it made it more competitive. Now, at the time in 2015, they did have a working relationship with WWE, and there was opportunities there, but I was already like, I'm ready to go back home, whatever. So there was that, but I would always just believed in going right to the manager or somebody and say, hey, I'm not really happy. My old thought was, I ain't come 300 miles to be unhappy with a job. I could have been unhappy with a job in Baltimore.
Right.
So that was my approach.
So I'm just I'm looking at what you do, and it seems like mentorship is a big thing for you.
Yeah,
you have the Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings podcast. Can you just kind of explain to the audience why you value mentorship so much?
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be here without guidance from people like Sam Davis, who is somebody who I grew up. We go to the same church, and he is a legend. And he's works at the Baltimore Sun, and I watched him when I was a child cover sports. And during the Ravens' first Super Bowl run, I watched him say, okay, I gotta go here, this, that, and the other. So like I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. And he would allow me to like write articles. So I went to Baltimore City College High School. It's the most prestigious high school in our state. And every year we play against the other school. Well, I give him Poly, and Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. And because of that, so it's always a City Poly game. Baltimore is like the school place you was like, what high school you go to? You're the only two that matter, City or Poly. We went there. So every year, my junior year, the year after I graduated from high school, I went to the game and I said, can I write an article? You critique it. And sure enough, that's what he would do. And any other opportunity. So when I needed an internship, he helped me land an internship at the Baltimore Sun. But he would always help me. Then when I got to school, people like Jerry Bembry, who works at ESPN now, he had worked at ESPN before, he left, taught, now he's back at ESPN. People like Dwayne Wickham, Eric Dotson, they would always help me. And I always felt like, well, I like helping the next generation. I love the business so much, that I want to make it better. I want to help people be able to do what they do. I don't take on too many mentees. I have about 10. Because I want to make sure that I can have personal relationships with everybody, make sure that I can help them. So it's something I enjoy doing. And that was part of the reason with the Breaking Through Glass Ceilings podcast, because it's really highlighting a lot of my friends and what they do, so that people who are looking for inspiration, looking for things like, okay, how did this person get their path? Of course, because I'm in the journalism field, most people are going to be journalists, but I have had when I was at ESPN, I started with my friend Heather. We both came in the same orientation class. She's a singer now, and I watched her go to Baltimore School for the Arts, same school that Tupac and Jada went to.
Wow.
And she went to California and she studied music out there. And you know, just like I remember like when she had dropped a new single, I'm like, wow, like how her voice, like, you know, everybody, especially if you grew up in church, everybody knows somebody who can sing, but then you got people who can sing. So I was like, I wanted her on the podcast, you know, other people who've done other things. So that's been the cool thing. And that's the, you know, it's not difficult to produce. It's very fun. Like I try to keep it where I always, you know, I know what questions I'm gonna ask going into it. Try to throw a couple of bells and whistles. My little cousin, he designed the music for me. He did Hypno Beats, so he made the music. I'm gonna tell you straight up, and I don't even smoke, but I said, give me some chill music that somebody can smoke to, because he did for Same here. And look, I don't have a problem with it, you know.
Right.
It's not me, it's not us.
Yeah. So I did Break It Down with Brian H. And because it was a wrestling podcast, I said, I need a theme song that'll get me pumped like I'm about to come to the ring. So because he's an artist, he can just do it. And so like a lot of times if I'm about to do that podcast, I'm listening to music, it get me hyped up. But for like Breaking Through Glass Ceiling, something chill. And then so that's, you know, how I put that together.
Okay. Wow. So well, how do you're a man of many hats.
Yeah.
How do you kind of manage it all?
I don't even know sometimes. Coffee, but most importantly, prayer. You know, sometimes, you know, this weekend I said, okay, I'm not touching my computer. I said that, you know, there was a lot going on. I had a lot going on in my head. I said, I'm not touching the computer.
Yeah, those breaks are essential.
So I have to ask, like with content creation, right? So like, what's a tip that you have like for the audience, right? So we all, you know, everybody lives out loud on Facebook. But how do you just kind of capture those important moments? Or, you know, what are some things that people can think about, like as they continue to build like their podcast, and just to kind of take it to that next level?
So I'll tell you this one thing. So like when producing MacMania every week and producing the Wrestling Realm Now podcast every week, I always think about like when I'm doing the show, the Wrestling Realm is my show and I'm talent, but I tend to drive the car and set Dwayne up to break down everything. And then Brother Hugh comes in and just be too cool and just throw a little bit here and there. With MacMania, it's Evan's show. And at first I was just a producer, but he's like, no, jump in, you add to the show and the conversation. But the whole time I'm doing the show, I'm writing time codes down, thinking, this was good. This is a funny part of the conversation. And then I'll clip those off and put it on social media. You know, like last week, Dwayne was talking about cutting a rug. And he said, every time we go to the show, he said, they were singing Shawn Michaels music and I cut a rug. And I kept laughing. And so I'm like, yeah, people are like this. So, you know, that's one of the tips that I do. Also, like if it's a quote, especially like if it's an inspirational quote, you know, taking that stuff out and clipping that off as well.
That's
good idea.
Things to think about right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that, you know, people could easily do as well. Just, you know, even going back to review your content, and just kind of finding those moments. So that's a really good tip for people.
One thing that is kind of a theme through all this is Baltimore. So how did growing up in Baltimore shape the man that you are now?
I think for me, the thing is that we always have a chip on our shoulder because we've always been like the forgotten city in between Philly and DC. And the attitude is, Baltimore got a lot of haters and a lot of stuff like that. And I was sheltered for a while, but then after a while I wasn't. But by the time I wasn't sheltered no more, I had like my favorite cousins who had kind of like been in the streets and it's like, nah, ain't nothing out there. Well, you know, so it helped me learn a lot. But also, having the street smarts and the book smarts. Mm-hmm. Even when I went to Connecticut, sometimes I would, somebody might say something, huh? What you say? And then no. I'm like, wait, I ain't mean it like that. Right. But it definitely, we always looked at it as like a blue collar city. So it always make you, work hard, because it's always fun to see, like, when you see somebody from Baltimore do well, and you really see them on a come up. We always get, people love to push Michael Phelps and stuff. It's like, for instance, like Lamar Jackson, he's not from here. We ride hard for him because everybody, it's less like he fits the city, because people always doubt him. They say he can't throw. He threw over 3,500 yards. They said he can't, and he led the league in touchdown passes. Oh no, but he's not good enough. Well, he did win unanimous MVP, but that's the thing, people don't, so, and that's always like, no matter what, we always got to work harder. We always got to, work. So,
wow.
And so I have to ask, like, we talked about your career at the start of the interview and how you were able to just kind of shift around and apply yourself in those different industries. So can you talk a little bit about, just kind of from someone, you think you go into a job doing one thing, like, how do you, shift your mind to say, okay, this is something new. There is something to be learned here in this new industry. So can you talk to individuals just kind of a little bit about, like, how were you able to take what you knew and applied it in those different areas? And, why is it so important to be able to just kind of shift your focus sometimes?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, at Johns Hopkins, I came in as a contractor. Now, because they took too long to get my position converted, I left. But
yeah, that happens.
Yeah, and
that's for you.
But the thing was, when I was there, I always felt like I had to make myself irreplaceable. And it was a point where, when I saw that, okay, we doing social media, but if I create short social media videos, then this will help evolve what we're trying to do. Nobody else on the team, because they were all writers, nobody else on the team could shoot, edit, and post. They had a video team, but you had to book them and appointments and all that other stuff. They had a formal social media team. Well, I'm competitive because I worked at ESPN. They here at Johns Hopkins, they're in the medical field, but I'm gonna cover this and I'm gonna take a sports approach. Now I'm gonna outperform them because I'm gonna create engaging content, and I don't care about the backlash. It also did help having managers who had that same attitude. Both of my managers were women, minority women of color. Oh, so they always, and one of the director, she came to me. Wait, that wasn't her position. It was yes, the director. It was. She said to me, "I want to see you as one of the Black leaders here in this institution," and that meant a lot to me. And the thing is I always felt like, because I had that chip on my shoulder, she's fighting, trying to tell them, I need this position. I need him to be permanent. So it made me fight, and it made me constantly think of ways to evolve, create content. I created this show called In Case You Missed It. And what it was is, one day we're in a meeting and my friend Rachel is talking about this study that they're working on for breast cancer ducts. And I'm like, So the way she's explaining it, she's getting super excited. And Rachel is a science person. And I'm like, wow, now I'm interested.
Right.
So I tabled that thought, because I was like, we need to do some sort of social media video around this, because it sounds cool. So we did a microscope video around it, whatever. So then it was like the week after Prince died or something. I'm looking at my watch and it was like 5 things you may have missed from CNN. Oh, what if we do 5 things you may miss from Johns Hopkins? Thank God we didn't do 5. But so I thought about it, and I think I went to one friend. I think I went to my friend Lauren. So that sounds like a cool idea. I said, what if we make it like we do like this video and we just talk about the press releases and whatnot. So then I'm thinking about Rachel, because I'm thinking about, okay, who in the team can do this? I don't want to do it because I didn't want to be the face of the science stuff. I wanted to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, who could really get this? I said, oh, Rachel. So I go to Rachel, I break down the idea. She said, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. And we went to the manager. I presented it during a one-on-one. And when I tell you, she could take a C idea and make it to an A. I'm thinking we're gonna just set up in like a studio space and we'll do it. She goes, no, you got to go over campus. One day you're over here, one day you're over there. Go into the labs, go into the, on the hospital floors. I'm like, okay. So then it was like, all right, we can't just read the press release and give you one quick summary. We got to give you a story. We got to write it out. So then it was like 3 stories enough. And we created that project. We won the AAMC award for it. And so it was one of my proudest moments. But it was because, again, trying to make myself irreplaceable. The saddest part is that the project died after I left. But, to be able to do that, and I would always tell Rachel, I said, Rachel, I know you didn't study broadcasting. You studied science. I said, but you could do this. And when the feedback that I got a lot, especially from the Black journalism community, they said, so is Rachel, is she somebody who does this? I said, no, she's never done broadcasting before. Wow. I said, wow, she's really good. And, we made sure it looked good. We threw a couple, I made sure we found a really cool intro. My friend Archie was always like, she's like a creative genius. Like I could come up with something and, she could find like the perfect template, or she could design something or to do that. And my friend Kristen, I always called her the, I used to call her, I forgot. It was something like Kristen wouldn't give you anything. Like you had to earn her props. So I was like, Kristen, what do you think? No, she's like, that's too many stories. You're gonna try to do this every week. Ain't gonna work, this, that, and the other. But she Buzzkill, that's what I would call her. Buzzkill Chris. But she was so valuable to the team because she came in from Morgan as an intern and worked her way up to the contract. And then when the director left, she recruited her. But she was also found a way to she could also edit. So I was like, oh, so now I got somebody else who can edit. If I'm in a bind, boom, she can edit something for me. So it was a lot of fun there. But that was my main thing, was keeping myself irreplaceable. So even when I got to the Ringer, we do our podcast. So I'm like, what if we put I know wrestling fans might not listen to the whole show, but if we say something on the show that's really funny, we could create a breakout video clip and then get them engaging. And that's what I did, to the point the flagship show host was like, oh, well, we need that on our show too.
But Brian, just listening to you talk, just a couple of things that come to mind. Just kind of that power of collaborating, and seeing and just being able to see people for who they are and for what they bring to the table, and seeing beyond that. So, thank you for being who you are. You have definitely inspired people, like Rachel, to just kind of think about other possibilities and just kind of how you connect people. It's just kind of I think of you as an architect, right? So you have the plan and it's you're just bringing all these different pieces together. So, that's just absolutely amazing.
I can see why you and Mike are connected.
Me too.
That's the brother right there.
Man. Yeah. And one thing that stood out to me is a belief. Somebody had that belief in you.
Yeah.
And so you gave it back to them.
Yeah.
By giving your all. So just kind of just one thing that's one thing that I tell these younger people, if somebody's all in behind you, you need to go all in back. You owe it to them to give it your all. Even when the situation isn't so much beneficial to you, give it your all, because you never know who's watching.
Yeah,
you're right about that.
And I mean, and the other thing is, you know, for everyone that's listening, is to just think about your trajectory, right? So you may start somewhere, but you may end up somewhere else. And just kind of embracing that process, embracing that change, and just kind of, like Rodney said, you know, putting your all behind it. So
yeah, if you'd when I first got to ESPN, if you said, okay, what are you gonna be doing in 10 years? I probably would have told you I would have loved to have been working in the features department, helping produce some of the documentaries. But to now be doing podcasting full time, and obviously podcasting has evolved since then. I wouldn't trade it in for the world. Like, I've got to go to WrestleMania, which is, you know, and I produced the interview with Cody Rhodes, who was returning to the WWE after 6 years. So I'm backstage.
Awesome.
Yeah, and being backstage at WrestleMania, I'm like, wow, like I'm seeing wrestlers that, and you know, people I'm watching on TV, and even like some of the legends, like I grew up watching them. I walked past Trish Stratus and Lita, you know, and that's something I don't take for granted at all.
Yeah.
So Brian, what's next for you?
So currently I'm associate producer for the MacMania podcast, and you know, working on a book of wrestling. The next goal, the next step is be producer, which is just a step up in title. Still gonna be doing the same stuff, but you know, also my goal is also to be like in some of the wrestling documentaries. You see, when these shows come on, I want to be an on-air person that they can get called and say, "Oh, well, Brian, we want you to talk about, I don't know, Roman Reigns." You know, I want to be able to do stuff like that. I want to be able to, you know, I want to do stuff like that, and you know, also produce. I produced the docu-series on my friend Blake back in 20. Well, we finished it in 2020.
Wow.
I could have somebody else produce a documentary on the wrestling realm, but you know, I would do a lot of cool stuff like that. Just really like sharing stories.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it. So I do have one question for you, Brian. So, what is one thing that you want to leave our audience with? You know, it could be from your career, it could be, you know, something that you thought about today, it could just be from like your lived experiences. Like, what is one thing that you would like to share with people?
Embrace the journey. You know, the grind is fun. It's going to be tough. Don't give up. I mean, like I said earlier, I lost 40 pounds, and it was, oh man, these results ain't coming. And then you start seeing it. So it's just sticking with it. Same thing with, there was plenty of nights that I was in my basement recording wrestling shows. Why? Because I worked at Johns Hopkins during the day, and then recording a wrestling show because it's something I love doing. And it was the wrestling realm that led me to working for the Ringer and being able to be under the Spotify umbrella, working and creating content full time. But I still made sure, like even at Johns Hopkins, that I gave it my all, because you just never know. You know, always just try to make yourself irreplaceable and learn as much as you can.
Wow.
That's powerful.
Brian, how can people get in contact with you, and can you plug some of your socials?
Yeah, I'm at Brian H. Waters everywhere. As my friends from the Black Wrestling Podcast would say, don't forget the H. You can find the Wrestling Realm, realm spelled with a W, WREALM. Shout out to my mother. That was her idea for the alliteration. Also, every week, the MacMania Podcast, which is under the Ringer Wrestling feed on Spotify. And please check out the Book of Wrestling. If you are a wrestling fan from the Attitude Era, we are talking about the Attitude Era's. We're doing catchphrases. So the first episode, the first episode is on the curtain call. Not really a catchphrase, but it's when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash left to go to WCW. The second episode is Austin 316. We've also done Brett Screw Brett. Matter of fact, episode 9, because Brett Screw Brett is so intense, we had to do it twice. We also did DX first famous catchphrase. If y'all know what it is, it's y'all show. Y'all decide to say it.
I got a whooping for saying that.
Am I the only one that didn't?
Like we're the same age, so like we didn't exactly know what that meant.
Right.
And I that's
why I didn't say it. Like I said, it's y'all show. But We did that in 2 parts, from the Shawn Michaels and Triple H era to the Road Dogg and X-Pac and Billy Gunn era. So yeah, check that out. We did Die Rocky Die. So we talked about when The Rock joined the Nation of Domination. That was a lot of fun. We talked to the Godfather. And
I'm checking all this out. This is all my era. I love it.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. Episode 2, Austin 316. I'm on, and we recorded this after WrestleMania, so I was hoarse. But I'm on that one, and there's a surprise that we revealed on that one, that WWE told one narrative, but we found out something different. So check that out. Let me know when you find it at Brian H. Waters. Tweet me or Instagram me. But yeah, so those that's everything I'm doing. And of course, breaking through glass ceilings, which I gotta get y'all on. We're gonna have to schedule that.
Send us the invite with it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So Rodney, where can people find us?
You can find us on every single platform: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think iHeart still at cohort1986.com. And we also have a fabulous, what people say, fun-tabulous website called www.cohort1986.com.
Okay. Nice. I'm going to let you have that one.
Yeah, congratulations to everything that y'all doing.
Thank you. And congratulations to you, Brian. And thank you for being a mentor. And thank you for being a role model to so many people who are, looking to do what you've done, and just for being an inspiration. That's big.
Man,
I appreciate that.
An underrated attribute is just caring.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad that you care.
Because
a lot of people really don't.
Yeah.
And it's everybody's out for self. It doesn't want to pull the next generation up. And we're big on that. Yeah. And you are part of the Cohort 1986 family now.
Yes, welcome to
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe I should do like the Harlem Shake.
What it went like this. Well, Brian, man, we just want to thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Just gracing us with your presence and using your valuable time to chop it up with us.
Yes. Until next time, folks.
Peace out.
Bye.